Welcome aboard. Good day, passengers. I am Captain Shadow, and it is with great pleasure that I welcome you aboard today's journey on the legendary Concorde. Picture this, the sun-drenched shores of Malaga fading behind us as we ascend into the blue sky, heading to the pulsating heart of Ibiza. This is no ordinary flight. It's a celebration of one of aviation's most iconic marvels, the Concorde. Today, we are not just flying, we are traveling back in time, reliving the magic, mystery, and drama of this supersonic wonder. Our destination may be Ibiza, but the journey, that's a story in itself. We will uncover the astonishing engineering feats that made Concorde a symbol of speed and luxury, delve into the heart of its most tragic disaster, and explore lesser-known facts that kept this flying beauty on the lips of aviation enthusiasts for decades. Have you ever wondered what it's like to cut through the air faster than the speed of sound, sipping champagne as you watch the curvature of the Earth? Or perhaps you've heard whispers of Concorde's triumphs and trials, but want to know more. By the end of this journey, you'll see why this aircraft remains a legend, even though its wings no longer grace our skies. Buckle up, keep your curiosity soaring, and let's embark on an unforgettable adventure. From breathtaking innovation to heart-stopping moments, this is a tale that promises to leave you spellbound. Ready to take flight? Let's begin. We are positioned perfectly on the runway, the engines roaring with immense power, ready to unleash their full potential. This is the moment when the ground beneath us fades away and we embrace the skies above. Engage in autopilot now. Hold tight as we take to the skies. Feel the acceleration pushing you back into your seat as the Concorde surges forward, its sleek design cutting through the air with unmatched grace. The nose lifts, and suddenly we are airborne. Below, the world begins to shrink. The horizon stretches wide, and the sky becomes our domain. This is what it feels like to fly at the edge of possibility, graceful, thrilling, and unforgettable. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Shadow speaking. We've just soared into the skies aboard our Concorde. If you're enjoying this journey, I encourage you to like and share this stream. Your support allows me to continue these amazing adventures. Here is the story of one of the most significant events in the history of aviation. Let's travel back to Paris, July 2000. The Concorde, the pride of French aviation and a symbol of speed and luxury, was preparing for another transatlantic flight. There was an atmosphere of excitement and anticipation for an unforgettable journey among the passengers and crew. No one could have predicted that this day would be eternally marked in history. This is a tale of extraordinary determination, courage, and battling against the odds. I invite you to listen to this moving story, which shows how fragile our boldest dreams can be in the face of unpredictable events. On July 25th, 2000, Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport welcomed another beautiful summer morning. The sun was shining brightly as aviation enthusiasts gathered to witness the majestic Concorde prepare for its regular flight to New York. This supersonic aircraft, bearing the colors of Air France, represented more than just a means of transportation. It was a symbol of human achievement and technological progress. Flight 4590 was special that day. Among its passengers were 96 German tourists, excited about their journey to New York, where a luxury cruise ship awaited them. They were about to experience the unique privilege of crossing the Atlantic at twice the speed of sound. A journey that showcased the pinnacle of aviation engineering. The Concorde stood proudly on the tarmac, its distinctive delta wings gleaming in the morning sun. This remarkable aircraft had been safely carrying passengers for over 25 years, earning a reputation as the crown jewel of commercial aviation. Its sleek design and incredible speed made it the preferred choice of celebrities, business leaders, and aviation enthusiasts from around the world. Captain Christian Marty, an experienced pilot with thousands of flight hours, led the crew that day. His passion for aviation extended beyond his professional duties. He was known for his remarkable achievements, including being the first person to cross the Atlantic Ocean on a windsurf board. Alongside him were two skilled co-pilots and flight engineer, forming a team of consummate professionals dedicated to ensuring their passengers' safety and comfort. The ground crew worked diligently, performing their usual pre-flight checks with precision and care. In the passenger terminal, excited travelers prepared for what many considered the journey of a lifetime. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation as boarding time approached. The Concorde's presence at airports always drew attention. Its unique design, with the needle-like nose that could be lowered during takeoff and landing, represented the golden age of aviation innovation. Each departure was a reminder of humanity's ability to push the boundaries of what seemed possible. Little did anyone know that this routine summer morning would become one of the most significant moments in aviation history, forever changing the legacy of this remarkable aircraft and the brave souls who operated it. As the morning sun rose higher over Charles de Gaulle Airport, the ground crew commenced their meticulous preparations for Air France Flight 4590. The Concorde, with its sleek delta wings and pointed nose, stood as a marvel of aviation engineering. Pre-flight routines for this supersonic aircraft were always more comprehensive than for conventional planes, reflecting its unique capabilities and the precision required for its operation. Every system demanded careful inspection, from the hydraulics controlling the distinctive drooping nose to the intricate fuel distribution network essential for balancing the aircraft at Mach 2 speeds. Originally scheduled for an earlier departure, the flight began to experience a series of minor delays that subtly shifted the day's timetable. The loading of passenger luggage was more time-consuming than anticipated, partly due to the extra baggage of a tour group excited about their upcoming luxury cruise. The fueling process also required additional attention. The Concorde's fuel not only powered its engines, but also acted as a coolant and a means to adjust the aircraft's center of gravity during flight. Such complexity necessitated extra checks to ensure everything was in perfect order. Ground technicians observed that one of the auxiliary power units exhibited readings that warranted closer monitoring, although it remained within safe operational parameters. This prompted a brief consultation among the maintenance team, who decided to proceed while keeping an eye on the unit. Weight and balance calculations took longer than usual, as the Concorde's aerodynamic design made it particularly sensitive to weight distribution. Every kilogram had to be precisely accounted for, with passengers, luggage, and fuel all contributing to the critical calculations that would enable the aircraft to pierce the sound barrier safely. Weather conditions added another layer of complexity to the preparations. An unexpected heat wave had settled over Paris, with temperatures soaring to an uncommon 35 degrees Celsius. The high temperature affected air density, which in turn impacted engine performance and required adjustments to the takeoff thrust settings. The flight crew, led by Captain Christian Marty, reviewed these variables meticulously. They recalculated takeoff distances, engine settings, and reviewed emergency procedures to account for the hot and humid conditions. Earlier that morning, routine maintenance had been conducted on the runway. Several aircraft had already utilized the strip, including a Continental Airlines DC-10 that had departed shortly before Flight 4590 was scheduled to take off. The runway inspection team had completed their standard sweeps, but the intense summer heat caused mirages that shimmered above the tarmac, potentially obscuring small objects or surface imperfections. In the cockpit, Captain Marty and his experienced crew went through their comprehensive pre-flight checklist. The Concorde's sophisticated avionics and control systems required painstaking attention. They noticed that the fuel gauge for tank number 5 displayed slightly irregular readings. Though still within acceptable limits, the crew made a note to monitor it throughout the flight. Such diligence was standard practice, reflecting the professionalism with which they approached their responsibilities. Air traffic control was busier than usual, managing a surge of international flights, typical for the summer holiday season. The controller assigned to Flight 4590 had to carefully coordinate takeoff sequences to accommodate the increased traffic, resulting in additional brief delays. Each delay, though minor in isolation, contributed incrementally to the shifting schedule. As boarding commenced, the cabin crew greeted passengers with customary warmth, guiding them to their precisely assigned seats. The Concorde's seating configuration was intimate, accommodating just 100 passengers, which added to the exclusivity of the experience. Among the passengers were a group of German tourists, eagerly discussing their transatlantic journey at supersonic speeds and the luxurious cruise that awaited them in New York. Meanwhile, in the maintenance logs, engineers had recorded minor issues from previous flights, none severe enough to warrant grounding the aircraft. but noteworthy for ongoing observation. Tire pressure measurements had been double-checked, especially crucial given the Concorde's high-speed takeoffs and landings, which exerted significant stress on the landing gear. The engineering team paid particular attention to these details, cognizant of the importance of every component functioning flawlessly. Final preparations included re-verifying the aircraft's weight and balance. The Concorde's slim margins for error required that these calculations be exact. The flight crew adjusted the V1 and VR parameters based on the latest data, including the aircraft's weight, runway conditions, and the day's high temperatures. Each parameter was cross-checked among the crew to ensure consensus and accuracy. In the bustling terminal, onlookers paused to admire the Concorde through expansive windows. Its iconic profile was a symbol of human achievement, inspiring awe even among seasoned travelers. Ground staff proceeded with their tasks efficiently, yet many couldn't help but steal glances at the aircraft, aware that they were part of something extraordinary. The fueling process concluded, and the ground crew initiated their final external inspection. They walked the length of the aircraft, scanning for any anomalies on the fuselage, wings, and engine intakes. The Concorde's polished white exterior gleamed under the bright sunlight, a striking contrast against the blue sky. The crew confirmed that all access panels were secure, and that there were no visible signs of wear or damage. As the minutes ticked away, the cumulative effect of the small delays became more apparent. The flight crew remained in communication with air traffic control, adjusting their expectations accordingly. Yet none of these delays were cause for significant concern. They were part and parcel of the complexities involved in operating such an advanced aircraft. In the cockpit, the pilots conducted a final briefing, reviewing departure procedures, weather updates, and contingency plans. They were thorough and methodical, embodying the highest standards of aviation professionalism. The slight irregularity in the fuel gauge was noted once more, but all systems were deemed ready for departure. The passengers settled into their seats, some flipping through magazines, others gazing out the windows at the activity on the tarmac. A quiet excitement permeated the cabin after all. Flying on the Concorde was not just a mode of transportation, but an event in itself. The anticipation of breaking the sound barrier and arriving in New York ahead of time zones added to the unique allure of the journey. Finally, with all checks completed and clearances obtained, the aircraft was ready to push back from the gate. The ground crew disconnected equipment and signaled to the pilots that they were clear to proceed. The Concorde began to taxi towards the runway. Its four powerful Rolls-Royce Snecma Olympus 593 engines emitting a distinctive hum. As Flight 4590 approached the runway, the crew remained vigilant. The high temperatures were still a factor, and they reviewed their takeoff configuration once more. The runway ahead stretched out under the shimmering heat haze, a path that would soon launch them into the sky at unparalleled speeds. "All systems normal?" Captain Marty inquires, his eyes scanning the array of instruments before him. "All green," Gene confirms. Gilles nods. "Engines are ready. We're good to go." The control tower grants clearance. It's the moment they've all been waiting for. As the engines ignite, a powerful rumble resonates through the aircraft. The Concorde begins its roll down the runway, accelerating with an intensity that presses passengers back into their seats. The thrill is palpable, but then, amid the symphony of thrust and speed, something feels amiss. Captain Marty notices a subtle lag. Our acceleration is slower than expected, he thinks, a hint of concern flickering in his mind. He glances at Gene, who is already checking the speed indicators. "V1 speed not achieved," Gene reports, his voice tinged with unease. "V1 done. Point of no return, where takeoff must proceed is approaching, yet their speed lags." Strange, Captain Marty muses. Is there a headwind? He knows they must decide quickly. Abort or continue. The runway is finite, and every second counts. In the cabin, unaware of the developing situation, passengers enjoy the unique sensation of the Concorde's takeoff. Some gaze out the windows, marveling at the blur of the runway beneath them. A child presses his face against the glass, eyes wide with wonder. His mother smiles, sharing his excitement. Suddenly, a jolt shakes the aircraft. "What was that?" Captain Marty exclaims. Gilles responds swiftly. Engine 2 shows a surge temperature rising rapidly. Alarms begin to sound, piercing the cockpit's focused atmosphere. "We have a fire warning on Engine 2, Gene announces, urgency escalating in his voice. "Abort takeoff," Gene suggests. Captain Marty assesses the rapidly diminishing runway ahead. They're past V1 now. Aborting could be catastrophic. We have to get airborne, he decides. Shut down engine 2, he commands. Gilles moves swiftly, cutting fuel to the affected engine. Engine 2 shutdown initiated, he confirms. But the situation worsens. Engine 1 is losing power, Shile alerts. We're losing thrust on the left side. The aircraft veers slightly as asymmetrical thrust pulls it off course. Captain Marty grips the controls firmly, fighting to keep the Concorde aligned. Come on, stand with me, he urges under his breath. In the cabin, passengers feel the aircraft wobble. Concern spreads as they notice flames trailing from the left wing. Is that smoke? A man asks, peering through the window. Gasps ripple through the rows. Flight attendants move quickly, their training kicking in. Please remain seated and keep your seatbelts fastened, they instruct, masks of calm over their own apprehension. Back in the cockpit, the challenges mount. Fuel leak on the left wing, Guyla reports, possibly from the engine fire. Captain Marty's mind races. A fuel leak near an engine fire is a dire combination. We need to gain altitude, he states, determination sharpening his focus. Prepare for an emergency return. Jean contacts air traffic control. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Air France 4590. Engine failure and fire. Requesting immediate return. The response is swift but harrowing. Negative, cannot clear runway obstruction ahead, the controller informs. Their path back is blocked. What's our altitude? Captain Marty asks. Barely 200 feet, Jean replies. Not enough to maneuver safely. We have to avoid populated areas. Captain Marty decides, eyeing the landscape ahead, a patchwork of buildings and open fields. He banks the aircraft gently to the left, aiming for a less populated area, but the controls are heavy, unresponsive. Hydraulic systems failing, Gilla warns. We're losing control surfaces. The aircraft's nose begins to dip. Increase power to engines 3 and 4, Captain Marty instructs, attempting to coax more thrust from the remaining engines. Already at maximum, Guile responds. In the cabin, fear grips the passengers. Some hold hands, others whisper prayers. A flight attendant kneels beside an elderly woman, holding her hand tightly. We're doing everything we can, she assures, her eyes betraying the gravity of the situation. The Concorde skims perilously low over rooftops. Captain Marty spots a small field beyond a hotel. We'll aim for that clearing, he tells his crew. Brace for impact. His hands are steady on the controls, every muscle focused on this final act. His face set with resolve. Gilles secures his station, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Fuel tank pressure dropping rapidly. Gilles notes, fire spreading to the wing. Time seems to slow as they approach the ground. Captain Marty makes one last adjustment, leveling the wings to minimize the impact. Hold on, he shouts. The aircraft clips a light pole, then a small embankment. The left wing strikes the ground first, tearing away in a burst of debris. The fuselage slams into the earth, skidding violently. An explosion erupts as the fuel ignites, engulfing the rear of the plane in flames. In those final moments, the crew's actions mitigate what could have been an even greater catastrophe. Their efforts steer the Concorde away from densely populated areas, preventing further loss of life on the ground. Emergency services rush to the scene, sirens wailing. Firefighters battle the inferno, striving to reach any survivors. The devastation is immense, a tragic end to what began as a routine flight. The world is stunned by the news. The crash of Flight 4590 marks the first fatal accident involving the Concorde in over 2 decades of service. Investigations reveal that a metal strip left on the runway by a preceding aircraft caused one of the Concorde's tires to burst. Debris from the tire rupture struck the fuel tank, leading to the catastrophic chain of events. The tragedy prompts a global reflection on aviation safety. The Concorde fleet is grounded, leading to extensive investigations and modifications. Changes are made to tire design, fuel tank protection, and runway debris management. The industry vows to learn from the disaster to prevent such a loss from ever happening again. For the families of those who perished, the pain is immeasurable. Memorials are held, and the names of the victims are etched into monuments. Communities come together in grief and solidarity. The world mourns not only the loss of life, but the symbolic end of an era, the Concorde, once a beacon of progress, now a reminder of our vulnerabilities. Yet, amidst the sorrow, the legacy of Flight 4590 carries. lessons of resilience and the relentless pursuit of improvement. Aviation continues to advance, ever mindful of the sacrifices made. Safety protocols are enhanced, technologies refined, and the commitment to safeguarding every journey is strengthened. The memory of that day endures a testament to the human spirit in the face of tragedy. It serves as a poignant reminder of the responsibilities that come with pushing the boundaries of possibilities. And while the Concorde no longer graces the skies, its story, marked by both triumph and tragedy, continues to inspire awe and caution in equal measure. Through the lens of this heartbreaking event, we are reminded of the fragility of life and the importance of vigilance. The courage displayed by Captain Marty and his crew underlines a profound truth. Even in moments of insurmountable odds, a human capacity for bravery and selflessness shines brightly. Having delved into the tragic events of the most infamous Concorde disaster, it's important to remember that there were other critical moments in the aircraft's history that tested the limits of aviation safety. Let's explore another dramatic incident: the tire burst and near disaster. It was June 14th, 1979. An Air France Concorde, FBTSC, was preparing for a routine flight from Washington, D.C. to Paris. Captain Pierre and his experienced crew conducted meticulous pre-flight checks. Passengers, excited for the supersonic journey, settled into their luxurious seats, unaware of the drama about to unfold. As the Concorde roared down the runway, a loud bang echoed through the cabin. Unbeknownst to the crew at that moment, a tire on the left main landing gear had burst. Fragments of rubber were hurled at tremendous speed, striking the underside of the wing. The impact was so severe that it caused a shockwave, leading to a rupture in one of the fuel tanks. Fuel began to leak profusely from the wing, creating a volatile situation. In the cockpit, warning lights flashed. The flight engineer noticed the sudden drop in fuel pressure. "Captain, we're losing fuel from tank 5, he exclaimed urgently. Captain Doodle understood the gravity of the situation. A fuel leak at takeoff could lead to an in-flight fire or engine failure. Maintaining composure, the captain declared an emergency. "We're aborting climb. Prepare for immediate return," he instructed. Communicating with air traffic control, they coordinated an emergency landing back at Dulles International Airport. The aircraft was too heavy to land safely due to the full fuel load intended for the transatlantic flight. Dumping fuel was necessary but risky, given the leak. They initiated a controlled fuel dump over a designated safe area, all while carefully monitoring the leak and engine performance. In the cabin, flight attendants reassured passengers, masking their own concerns with practiced calmness. The passengers felt the plane bank and circle, but were unaware of the potential disaster. After burning off sufficient fuel, the Concorde aligned with the runway. Emergency crews were poised on the ground. The landing had to be precise. Any hard contact could exacerbate the leak or ignite the fuel vapors. Captain Doodle executed a flawless touchdown. As the aircraft decelerated, a collective sigh of relief filled the cockpit. Firefighters inspected the aircraft as passengers disembarked via mobile stairs. The damaged fuel tank and burst tire were evident upon examination. This incident was a wake-up call, highlighting vulnerabilities in the Concorde's design. Subsequent investigations led to significant safety modifications, including the reinforcement of fuel tanks with Kevlar liners and the development of more robust tires to prevent similar occurrences. While the tire burst incident highlighted vulnerabilities during takeoff, the Concorde also faced challenges during its developmental phase. One such event was the 1971 test flight engine failure, a moment that underscored the risks involved in pushing the boundaries of supersonic flight. In February 1971, a Concorde prototype embarked on a critical test flight over the Atlantic Ocean. Captain Brian Trubshaw, a legendary test pilot, led the mission to push the aircraft's boundaries and gather essential data for its certification. The crew included engineers and co-pilots, all pioneers venturing into uncharted aeronautical territory. As the Concorde accelerated past Mach 1, the sonic boom reverberated below. At cruising altitude, everything seemed nominal. Suddenly, the number 2 engine began to surge violently. Warning alarms blared as the engine's RPM fluctuated uncontrollably. "Engine 2 is surging," Parameters are off the scale, the flight engineers shouted. Captain Trubshaw faced a critical decision. An engine failure at supersonic speeds posed significant risks. He ordered an immediate throttle back of the affected engine, but the surging persisted. Shut down Engine 2, he commanded decisively. With one engine out, the aircraft began to yaw due to asymmetric thrust. Applying rudder to compensate, the co-pilot reported. The crew worked in unison to stabilize the aircraft. We'll descend to subsonic speeds, Trubshaw decided. The Concorde carefully decelerated through the sound barrier, experiencing buffeting as it transitioned to lower speeds. Communication with ground control was established. Concorde prototype requesting priority landing engine failure. They transmitted. The nearest suitable airfield was over an hour away. The crew had to manage fuel consumption, navigation, and maintain structural integrity under altered aerodynamic conditions. Throughout the ordeal, the team maintained professionalism. Their training and familiarity with the aircraft's systems were paramount. Upon approach, they conducted all necessary checklists for a 3-engine landing. The Concorde touched down smoothly, greeted by emergency response teams. Post-flight analysis revealed that the engine failure was due to a compressor stall caused by ingesting ice crystals at high altitude, a phenomenon not fully understood at the time. This event led to redesigns in the engine's anti-icing systems and adjustments to operating procedures, enhancing safety for future flights. Not all incidents occurred at high altitude or during testing phases. Some happened during routine operations. The 1989 tail strike at JFK Airport serves as a sobering example of how challenging weather conditions can turn a standard landing into a critical situation. On April 12, 1989, British Airways Concorde G BOAF approached New York's JFK Airport after a swift journey from London. Captain John Hutchinson, a veteran pilot with thousands of flight hours, prepared for landing amid challenging weather conditions. A low-pressure system brought gusty crosswinds and reduced visibility due to fog. Runway 13L, winds 180 degrees at 20 knots, gusting to 30, the air traffic controller informed. The Concorde's delta wing design required careful speed management during landing too slow, and it risked stalling. Too fast, and it consumed excessive runway. As they descended, a sudden wind shear caused the aircraft to lose altitude abruptly. She's dropping. The first officer alerted. Captain Hutchinson reacted instantly, applying thrust and adjusting the pitch to counteract the sink rate. Despite his prompt action, the tail struck the runway just before the main landing gear touched down a tail strike. Alarms sounded, and the aircraft shuddered. "We have a tail strike," Hutchinson acknowledged calmly. They continued the landing roll, bringing the Concorde to a safe stop. Emergency services were already en route, anticipating potential issues due to the adverse weather. Passengers remained largely unaware of the incident's severity, thanks to the crew's composed demeanor. After shutdown, engineers inspected the aircraft. The tail's lower fuselage exhibited scraping and minor structural damage, but the pressure hull remained intact. The incident prompted investigations by aviation authorities. It highlighted the need for enhanced pilot training on approach techniques in variable wind conditions, especially for aircraft with unique aerodynamic profiles like the Concorde. British Airways updated their operating procedures, incorporating lessons learned to prevent future occurrences. As the Concorde neared the end of its illustrious career, it still encountered unforeseen challenges. On one of its final flights, the aircraft faced an unexpected storm that would test the skill and resolve of its crew one last time. In October 2003, as the Concorde's retirement loomed, British Airways organized special farewell flights. Captain Mike Bannister, the airline's chief Concorde pilot, was at the controls for one of these historic journeys from New York to London. Enthusiastic passengers and media personnel filled the cabin, eager to be part of aviation history. Midway across the Atlantic, the Concorde encountered a rapidly developing weather system. Despite forecasts predicting mild conditions, a rogue storm had formed, bringing severe turbulence and towering cumulonimbus clouds. Radars picking up significant activity ahead, the flight engineer noted with concern. Captain Bannister weighed his options. Diverting around the storm would require significant course adjustments and could impact fuel reserves. We'll reduce speed and adjust altitude to find smoother air, he decided. The Concorde descended from 60,000 feet to 50,000 feet, but the turbulence persisted. The aircraft was buffeted by strong updrafts and downdrafts. Lightning flashed nearby, illuminating the sleek contours of the Concorde against the darkened sky. In the cabin, the seatbelt signs were illuminated, and the crew reassured passengers, some of whom clutched their armrests anxiously. Maintaining clear communication, Captain Bannister coordinated with air traffic control and other aircraft to navigate the safest path through the storm. His experience and calm leadership were instrumental. After about 30 minutes of tense flight, they emerged from the storm's grasp. Resuming their original altitude and speed, the remainder of the flight proceeded without incident. Upon landing at Heathrow Airport, passengers expressed both relief and admiration for the crew's handling of the situation. The unexpected turbulence served as a dramatic backdrop to one of the Concorde's final flights, symbolizing the aircraft's ability to face challenges even in its last days. Lastly, the Concorde's journeys over the Atlantic were not always smooth sailing. The engine surge over the Bay of Biscay in 1995 demonstrated how quickly a routine flight could become a test of a pilot's expertise and the aircraft's resilience. On February 5, 1995, Air France Concorde FBVFA departed Paris for a routine flight to New York. Captain Turcat, a seasoned pilot instrumental in the Concorde's early development, was in command. As the aircraft climbed to cruising altitude, everything seemed normal. Crossing over the Bay of Biscay, the Concorde experienced an unexpected engine surge on engine number 3. The aircraft jolted as the engine's compressor stalled, causing a temporary loss of thrust. Warning lights illuminated the cockpit. Engine 3 surged, throttling back, the flight engineer reported. Captain Turcat and his team acted swiftly. They reduced power to the affected engine and monitored its parameters. Possibility of compressor stall due to high-altitude wind shear, the co-pilot suggested. To prevent potential damage, they decided to shut down the engine. Flying at Mach 2 with one engine out required precise control. The Concorde's design allowed for supersonic flight on 3 engines, but it demanded the pilot's full attention to manage fuel flow, balance, and navigation. They communicated with air traffic control, declaring an emergency and requesting a return to Paris. Adjusting their flight path, the crew began a gradual deceleration and descent. In the cabin, passengers were informed of a technical issue necessitating a return. The flight attendants maintained a calm environment, attending to any concerns. As they approached Paris, the crew prepared for landing with one engine out. The Concorde touched down smoothly at Charles de Gaulle Airport, greeted by emergency vehicles as a precaution. Post-flight inspections revealed that the engine surge was caused by unexpected atmospheric conditions disrupting airflow into the engine. The incident contributed valuable data to the understanding of how high-altitude weather phenomena could affect engine performance. Procedures were updated to include additional precautions in similar conditions, enhancing the safety of future flights. These true stories highlight the skill and professionalism of Concorde's pilots and crews. Each incident presented unique challenges that tested the limits of aviation knowledge and the aircraft's capabilities. Through quick thinking and adherence to safety protocols, disasters were averted and valuable lessons were learned. The Concorde remains an icon of aviation history, not just for its technological achievements, but also for the human stories of courage and expertise that accompanied its journeys through the skies. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. If you'd like to support my channel even further, consider becoming a patron, or simply share this stream with your friends. Together, we're building an amazing community of aviation enthusiasts. Dear passengers, our journey is nearing its end. Thank you for accompanying me on this extraordinary flight from Malaga to Ibiza aboard the legendary Concorde. I hope that these stories of dramatic events and heroic pilot actions have brought you closer to the fascinating world of aviation. Today's tales have showcased not only the technological achievements of this remarkable aircraft, but also the courage and professionalism of those who flew it. Their determination in the face of challenges is an inspiration to us all. I encourage you to join me in future streams, where we'll continue to explore more secrets of the skies and delve into stories filled with emotion and passion. Your support and engagement are invaluable to me. If you have any questions or would like to hear about specific events or aircraft, please let me know in the comments. Your feedback helps me create content that truly interests you. Finally, I'd like to thank you once again for spending this time with me. I wish you a wonderful day and always safe flights. See you on our next journey. Captain Shadow, signing off and wishing you all the best.